In today's show, Sean Highkin of the Rose Garden Report joins the program, and we talk about the Blazers' summer of surprises, from Damian Lillard to Hansen to Drew Holiday way back when. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube, coming at you 3 days a week in August and into the first couple weeks of September. And as we do during the offseason, we bring back in the folks that cover the team for long conversations. So Sean Highkin's here from the Rose Garden Report. Sean, how you doing?
I'm good, Mike. It's been an interesting offseason, pretty much the opposite of last offseason in every way. So, as far as this stuff goes, you and I have both been doing this a long time. I would say this is one of the more memorable off seasons, and honestly, mostly for good reasons, as opposed to some of these past ones.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it was just like, hey, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start talking about off-season surprises. Damian Lillard, Hansen, Drew Holiday. It starts like, oh, Drew Holiday, that's a pretty big surprise. And then it's like draft night, like Hansen, oh, that's where did that come from? That's a surprise. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, franchise icon Damian Lillard is back in the fold. It all came together so quickly over the course. I guess that's generally how off seasons work. Let's start with Dame, though, because I think this is the biggest shocker and the sort of, it's the headline. What is now that it's real, now that it's like actually he's back and he's talked to the media and he's here and all that, what is your sort of thoughts on how this all came together and what it means for both Dame and the Trailblazers?
Well, obviously going into the offseason, this was not on anybody's radar, really, because I didn't think that Bucks would waive a guy that had $113 million, even with him not probably going to be playing next year with the torn Achilles. That's just so much dead money to have on your books. But then, I woke up one day, I saw that, because this stuff all happens earlier on the East Coast. And so I saw that, like, they signed Miles Turner. It's like, how'd they sign Miles Turner? And then they was like, oh, they're waiving and stretching Damian Lillard. And immediately, I started getting texts from all my friends and from people in the business being like, hey, is Dame going to come back home? And I was just like, I don't think so. Because I figured he would probably maybe just not sign with anybody this first year so that he could just rehab and not worry about it. And because, he's getting all his money from the Bucks anyway. So it's not like he's like leaving money on the table by not signing. Although, I mean, at least that's what we thought at the time. Obviously, that ended up not being the case. But so my thought was just like, I've always assumed that before the end of his career, he was going to come back and play for the Blazers, because he said that in the goodbye letter that he wrote when he got traded. He's openly been telling people behind the scenes since the day that he got traded that he was going to end his career in Portland. Like, everybody knew that it was going to happen, but I kind of figured it was going to be in a few years when everybody knew that it was just like a farewell tour, and it was going to be like a Scottie Pippen going back to the Bulls in 2004 or Dwayne Wade going back to the Heat in 2019. And everybody kind of knew it was that. I did not think it was going to be this soon. And then once he gets waived, my immediate reaction is that's still probably not the right time. I don't think it's going to happen. And then over the next couple of days, I start hearing from people who have knowledge of, his inner circle and his, thinking that, just don't completely write off the idea that it could happen this summer. I didn't think the money would be what it was for a guy coming off a torn Achilles who's getting all of his money from the Bucks still. I thought that given that he was already still getting his whole, $50 or $60 million a year salary from the Bucks, that the Blazers could get him on like a vet min or something at that point. It's like no harm, no foul. I didn't think it would be the full mid-level. But
yeah, get your money.
Good job by him and good job by Aaron Goodwin to make that happen. But once it actually happened, I was still kind of like, is this really the best thing to do? Because I just, all the stuff that we've, talked about incessantly since the news broke of like, what does this mean for Scoot? And like, they just did the Drew Holiday trade, which I don't know if they would have done if they had known that Dame was going to be possibly on the market. And then by the time we got to his press conference and he said everything that he said about knowing that this is all about the young guys and he's just here to try to fit in and try to help them. And it was more about coming home for him than it went. Obviously, Dame believes still that he's going to be, he's going to come back as something close to what he was. But he said everything he said did not make it sound like he's coming back expecting to still have everything based around the franchise reoriented completely around him like it was here for 11 years. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Why not? This is not, it's a good vibes move. He's not going to play next year anyway. So whatever the conversation is about what it means for Scoot, you can deal with that in 15 months. So, if anything, I think that him being pretty much, he hasn't officially been ruled out for next season, but, for all intents and purposes, he's not going to play next season. I kind of think that's the best way to ease it back in, because it's not like he's coming in still, having played at the level that he played at the last couple of years in Milwaukee, which was, not peak Dame, but still pretty good. He was an all-star and he was all NBA both of those years. He's still pretty good. And then he comes in and it's like he's expecting to start. He's expecting to have the kind of role that he had, before. And then, what does that mean for Scoot? With this, it's like, okay, everybody knows the deal. Everybody knows he's not going to play next year. Everybody knows the team still, has high hopes for Scoot. Everybody knows that, in the short term, we'll see what happens next summer. But in the short term, the role of veteran, presence, point guard that can play with Scoot or with Shade, and Drew Holiday is here to do that. And Dame can just kind of be there, get reacclimated, kind of see, because so much of the organization has turned over since the last time Dame was here, that, he can get reacclimated to everything. He can do his rehab. He can, help out Scoot and Shaden and some of the young guys behind the scenes. And then we'll just reevaluate where everything is a year from now. I think if it was going to happen this soon, I think that was probably the best way that it could have shaken out.
Yeah, I think the runway of having a full 15 months does make it a little bit easier. It'll be, it's just so long to know exactly how it'll work. But if, Dame said, I expect to make a full, I expect to be back to form. Of course he does, right? He's Damian Lillard, right? He's wired a certain way. I think there's a world in which it is more complicated because the point guard of the future has suddenly been visited by the point guard of the past who might want to be the point guard of the present. I think there is a world where that happens, but they don't have to. They'll probably have to address it a little bit behind the scenes, but they won't have to actually address it in a meaningful way until at least this time next year or something like that, in terms of figuring out how it all works. And obviously in NBA time, a season is a cajillion. It's there's a million iterations. So, yeah, I think the role stuff, we're just far enough away from it that will be if it's a problem, it's a problem for the future.
Right.
But I do think it is. I think it's interesting because it's just he's Damian Lillard, right? Such a big presence and such a big part of this organization that it'll be curious how that all shakes out. But I do think one of the things, and you mentioned, is they get a year to see what it works. What is Scoot Henderson? What is Shaden Sharp? How does Drew Holiday fit in the mix? And then they'll have a lot of chances to kind of analyze those moving pieces and then figure out how Dame fits into it. And if Dame does fit into ceremonial starter or big minute starter, then they'll figure out what the deal is. But again, that's many months from now. I guess so. Just before we move on, because I want to talk about young Hansen here in a second. Your read is Dame is kind of, I don't know if on board, but understands the larger plan at bay here.
I think that he, based on what he said, and you and I both covered Dame long enough to know that he's not one of these guys that'll just always give the politically correct answer and just, say what needs to be said in order to win the press conference. Dame is as good as anybody in a press conference, but everything he says, I've always gotten the sense that he's, coming at it from a genuine place. And also just the reality of, yes, Dame does believe fully that he's going to come back from this Achilles injury good as new. And I fully believe him that he believes that, but I think he's also smart enough and self-aware enough to know that that's not a guarantee that he's going to come back in and be able to be what he was, because the track record of he's going to be 36 by that time. He's about the same age Kobe was when he tore his Achilles. And we know that Kobe was one of the most maniacal competitors of all time. He was never the same guy when he came back from the Achilles. So I think everybody kind of knows. And you know what? Honestly, man, these are these are good problems to have of like, what are we going to do if we have to figure that out? Because
if everybody's good, if everybody's good, that's great.
Well, right, because like the two ways that this could go is like if Scoot absolutely balls out this year and has this, breakthrough year of becoming an all-star, and it is so obvious that he has to be the long-term starting point guard and Dame's just going to have to deal with it, then the Blazers, the guy that the Blazers drafted third overall that got Dame to request a trade ended up panning out. That's great.
Right.
If Dame comes back as like 80% of what he was before the torn Achilles and is still like an all-star, all-NBA caliber player, and then you drop that in there with whichever one of the young guys they do decide to build around, that's also great. There could be a world where both of those things end up happening and then you have to make some decisions. There could also be a world where none of those things end up happening and then you're not in a great place. But if that was going to happen, you weren't going to be in a great place anyway.
Right. Agreed. I agree on both sides. If everybody's hooping, it's an easy problem to have to solve. And if everybody struggles, it's not that much different than where you would have been if you hadn't made this decision. Obviously, there are some sliding.
If Scoot ends up not making the leap that they want him to make, then they would have to figure something out long-term at point guard anyway, whether Dame was waiting in the wings or not. And if he is, if Scoot does make that leap, then Scoot made that leap. And now you've got that guy for the future.
Yeah, exactly. There's some sliding door stuff along the way, but I think I tend to agree with that, Reed. You were in Vegas. You saw young Hansen up close. He's a giant person. He seems like a whole lot of fun. Let's talk about him in the second segment. Join us there, won't you? But first, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink. That's right. Golf's mightiest cocktail, minus the alcohol, because 5-Hour Energy's got a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. If you are a poor golfer like me, the fun thing to do out on the golf course is make sure you're focused and not going to really screw up and embarrass yourself. And if you're a wonderful golfer, you're still going to want to have that energy for the back nine. Golf is all about good times with good people. And good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with your friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, still chatting here with Sean Highkin of the Rose Garden Report. We're talking about Trailblazers offseason surprises, and draft night was one heck of a surprise. The Blazers were at 11. They traded back to 16, and then it was like, in the pick spoiling era that we've been in for now 15 years, it's like, wait, who? And at the time, everyone's like, Hansen Yang? Who is
Yeah,
Hansen
exactly, because
Yang?
that's how we thought it was. So let me tell you a story about, like, this is just so how you guys know just how off the radar this was. So as many of you know, if you follow me on the various social media platforms, in addition to running the Rose Garden Report website, which you should all subscribe to, I am also the Trailblazers insider for Rip City Radio 620, which is the station that carries the team's games. And I was on draft night. I was at the practice facility in the film room with my coworker at 620, Chris Burkhart, who, he sometimes fills in as a host on the drive. He does a lot of the production stuff behind the scenes, and he also runs the station's social media accounts. And because Chris is a professional and is very prepared for all contingencies, he had on his computer mocked up like social graphics of like Blazers select Kasparis Yakachionis, Blazers select, whoever, for like 20 or 30 different players. Just as soon as they called the pick in, he could just tweet it out from their social media account. Guess who he did not have a social graphic ready to go for?
Yeah, my man Hansen. Exactly.
So we had to just scramble to find the that, and it's like we were all just like stunned by it, and my first reaction was like, oh, okay, like because I knew they brought him in for a workout. He was part of that first group of projected lottery picks that they brought in for a workout. But I just thought that he was, one of the, he was projected as like a second round pick or maybe a late first round pick. I thought maybe they just they brought him in because they needed another body. Little did I know they actually put that workout together because they wanted to see him against, equivalent level, prospects in their minds. And really the thing that should have tipped it off is, how when they put up the video, the YouTube compilation of highlights from, every draft workout that they do that the Blazers content team puts out on the different on YouTube and the different social channels. They did not put any of Hansen's footage in the thing they did from that workout after that workout, which at the time, if you were going to notice something like that, which I didn't, because again, he was just so off everybody's radar. He was not somebody I even thought they would think about taking. I would have been like, oh, yeah, why would they put his stuff in the workout? Because he's, one of the, fringe guys that was in that workout. Why would he, they wouldn't even bother putting that in because, they're not going to draft him. Turns out the reason they didn't put him in that stuff was because they didn't want anybody to be onto the idea that they wanted him. So
yeah, they kept it was listen, we're after Asa Newell. We're after Asa Newell.
Asa Newell, yeah. Rasheer Fleming, yeah, this is our guy. I'll tell you this. After this, I'm actually kind of glad that it worked out this way because after this happened, and I would hope that people, your listeners, my readers, everybody kind of understands mock drafts are for entertainment purposes only. They do not tell you anything about what teams actually are going to do. Teams have every reason to, put out fake, disinformation out there to keep teams off of the scent of what they actually want to do. And I know, you have talked about this many times before, and I've written about it many times before of how well, ESPN's mock drafts in the past have predicted what the Blazers are going to do and how these things usually have, good intel. But nobody had this. Literally not one. There was not one, draft analyst who said, hey, don't sleep on young Hansen being in the, a guy for the Blazers. That was literally nobody had it until they called the pick in.
Yeah, shout out to my guy Rafael Barlow who had him at 27, the bravest of the brave, 27. Yeah. What was your early impressions of Hansen in Vegas? I think so much of the question marks with how's he going to translate? Obviously, Summer League isn't the NBA,
right?
But it is a step forward. What'd you think about the first 4 games of we've seen? We've seen him play, I don't know, about 100 minutes so far.
Yeah. Well, Summer League isn't the NBA, but the thing about Summer League is that it's really hard for bigs to look good at Summer League. So if my going into it, my thought was, I just want to see physically and athletically if he can hang. If he doesn't get played off the floor and he isn't just, so far behind these guys as far as being in shape. I just want to see him be able to stay on the floor. That was really all I was looking for. And then he had the first couple of games that he had, and I was like, oh, okay, this is this might actually, they might have actually seen something here. First possession of the first game, he wins the tip, and then he finds Sidi Sissoko cutting to the basket for a dunk. He has a couple of those, hate to use the Jokic comparison because it's a cliche at this point, but he, throwing a really tight pass through traffic to find a guy. Rim protection, I think, looked better than anticipated. The thing that really impressed me, though, Mike, sitting courtside, because you haven't been to Summer League in a few years, but where we sit in those games.
Yeah, Thomas baseline, yeah.
Right, yeah, baseline, right by the court. The thing that really impressed me about it was that he was out there. We were close enough that we could hear what was being said on the court. He was pretty vocal out there. He was directing traffic, even though he does not speak English. He doesn't speak any English in his day-to-day, life. He has a translator with him pretty much all the time. But when he's out on the court, he knows enough terminology that he can yell cut or get back. And it's enough that his teammates generally know what he's saying. Or now there are some times where the language barrier is kind of, very obvious, because there was one game, I think it was the third game. It was the game against the Pelicans, because that was at Cox. I remember that one because I was sitting with Hollinger and he was cracking up over this. But Hansen was in the paint on defense for 10 seconds. Obviously, they don't have 3 in the key and FIBA rules or some of these international stuff. So that's a thing that he's still learning. And so, he's in the paint for like 10 seconds and the ref yells at him, get out, like trying to give him a chance to get out. And then he doesn't hear it or he doesn't understand it. And then they call the 3 in the key on him. So
yeah, that's all like right early in the game. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So that's all like language barrier stuff and rookie stuff that he's going to figure out. But I was really impressed by how vocal he was being on the court for somebody that doesn't speak the same language as all his teammates. And it seems like everybody really enjoys playing with him because he's a guy that, he looks to pass. He, knows how to make plays. He isn't, I don't know, the vibes around it. After that first Summer League game, I was like thinking, did they actually just draft Chinese Jokic? Is that like, did that actually happen? Now, who's to say if he ever ends up being that, like, it's pretty tough to ever like project that anybody's going to be a 3-time MVP who wasn't taken in the lottery. But I mean, I'll tell you what, a lot of other people, who cover other teams or who are with other teams that I talked to in Vegas, a lot less people were questioning why they picked him, where they picked him after those first couple Summer League games.
Yeah, I think he looks like he belongs. Like, it's hard to know what he'll be like, but I think it wasn't like it. I think I've said on the show, it's like kind of the, if there was no name on the back scouting, you'd be like, who is 16, right? You'd be like, you'd know right away. You'd be like, who is 16? Like, oh, that was their first round pick. You'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He looks like it, right? Like if you didn't know what to look for, I think he would still look like their best player in Summer League. I think he's going to play pretty early on this season too, right? Yeah. Like I think he's, obviously there's a big question mark on what Rob does, but like, I think Hansen plays early. Like he'll get minutes in the first couple games as like a natural backup center, right?
I would tend to agree, especially after they bought out DeAndre Ayton. So he's out of you just look at their center rotation because after they drafted him, which came a year after they drafted a center in the top 10 last year in Donovan Clingan, it's like, wait, they have way too many centers. How are any of these guys going to get playing time? Then it's like, okay, they buy out DA. He's out of the picture now. Rob, as far as I know, Rob's fine right now, but my default assumption is always going to be that Rob is not going to be healthy and that
even last year they were really conservative with his minutes.
He played 20 games last year.
Yeah, even before he got hurt, they were very conservative with his minutes.
Right, and he's not going to play back-to-backs.
It'll be similar again. Yeah,
and then WAP is kind of a situational big. Like they put him in there when they want a different look, with like when they want like more of a pick and pop threat. But he's not going to play in every matchup. Just defensively, his deficiencies on that end make it so that he can't be a guy that plays every night. So now you're really just talking about Hansen and Clingan, and I would imagine Klingan's going to start because I think he's clearly more NBA ready than Hansen is. Yeah. But Hansen is going to play. And I remember, so at his introductory press conference after the draft, Chauncey said that they would be comfortable putting him in a game right now and that they don't view it as a project or like he's going to have to spend a bunch of time in the G League or anything like that. And then you saw him at Summer League, and obviously Summer League talent isn't NBA talent. But like I said before, he looked like he could hang with NBA caliber, athleticism and physicality, at least be able to stay on the floor. So I think pretty early on, I would imagine on opening night, he plays, actual rotation minutes.
Yeah, that's my guess too. I think there'll be a learning curve for him. I think the strength
totally,
is going to be a challenge, and maybe but they're going to play him 28 minutes. So it's like, they're going to play him 8-minute shifts or whatever and be like, go off, like play as hard as you can,
It'll be like what they did with Clingan early on.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they're trying to ease him into it.
I think he's going to walk into minutes as a 20-year-old rookie, which is pretty, that's pretty fun. Okay, we're talking surprises. Remember way back when the Blazers traded for freaking Drew Holiday? That was a pretty big surprise. That was a pretty big surprise at the time. Let's talk about that to close the show. Join us there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listen to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting here with Sean Highkin of the Rose Garden Report. You can subscribe to it at therosegardenreport.com. That's where you're going to find it to get all of Sean's work.
Drop the. It's cleaner, as some people have said.
Have you dropped the? Are you just
Rose Garden? No, I never had the. I never had the in the URL.
Excuse me. Rosegardenreport.com.
Yeah.
Thank you. So way back when, before the shocker of franchise icon Damian Lillard rejoining the team, before the shocker of 19-year-old Chinese 7-foot center joining the team literally out of the stands at Barclays, the Blazers made a pretty stunning trade when they decided to send Anthony Simons to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Drew Holiday. What were your initial reactions to the Drew trade, and kind of how do you view him fitting into the mix?
Oh, I thought it was a good trade right away because Simons was going into the last year of his contract. You're either going to let him walk or you're going to re-sign him for, something similar to probably to what they were paying him already. And I think we've already kind of seen over the last couple of years since they traded Dame what the ceiling of a team where Anthony Simons is your, $30 million a year lead guard is. And so if it were me making the decision, that would not have been the way that I would have gone. I also didn't really have that much of an issue with Drew's money because the Blazers books outside of the Jeremy Grant contract, which they might just have to live with for the next 3 years. I just don't know if they're going to be able to move that contract. But outside of that contract, they had so much money coming off the books, and they had so many. Like you look at Denny Avdia is still on that really cheap contract for 3 more years. Tumani Kamara, they still have 2 years at basically the minimum, and those are their 2 best players at this point. And, you've still got Scoot for 2 more years on a rookie deal. You've still got Shaden for 1 more year on a rookie deal. You've still got Klingon on a rookie deal. Like, I didn't feel like, even though it was a lot of money for a 35-year-old guard to take on, I didn't think it was going to cripple them. And it was a player that actually is going to help them. Because I felt like, it's also like it helped kind of clarify the direction because Joe said at the end of the season that the Blazers want to not be in the lottery again next year and that they want to try to compete for the play-in. Drew Holiday is a player that you trade for when your goal is to win more games than you won last season. That's what teams do when they trade for him. Now, do I think they're going to win a title next year like Milwaukee did or Boston did? No, I do not. But I was like, okay, that I think it makes sense. And I think also, crucially, he can play with Shaden at the 1. Yeah. He can play with Scoot at the 2, especially as he's gotten older. He's turned into more of a 3-and-D guy who plays more off ball. He's you can have him in either spot. Obviously, defensively, he's a huge upgrade from Simons. And I don't know. I just thought, especially, and again, they made this trade, and we were having our main analysis of this trade before the Dame thing became a possibility. But ever since they traded Dame, as good of guys as Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams and some of these other vets are, none of them are the vocal, guy in the locker room that everybody gravitates towards and that's very unquestionably the guy and the leader on the team. Drew is one of a handful of guys in the NBA who's on Dame's level in that regard. Yep. So it just made a lot of sense to bring it in. Now, obviously, there were some reports at the time about it. Is Drew happy about this? Is Drew willing to, do this? Obviously, it seems like a lot of that stuff is not really, the case. As we're recording this, the Blazers are going to have a press conference with Drew tomorrow morning. So by the time...
Wait, hold on. As you're listening to this, Drew Holiday is conducting a press conference right now.
Yes.
Tuesday,
as
July 29th show. Welcome. Yeah.
We could just we'll just AI in quotes later from the press conference just for whatever. But it seems like he's at least in the short term on board with it. Now we'll see what happens a year from now, just like with everything else. I also think it makes sense to have that, veteran point guard who can actually play this coming year because Dame's not going to play this year.
Yeah.
So
it's so much easier to do leadership stuff when you're on the court.
Right.
Dame will be able to do what he does, but it's just so much easier to have really have a guy's ear if you're out there playing. Chauncey's talked about that a bunch, and I think there's real value in that for sure.
And Drew's still pretty good too. He's not the same. He's not the guy he was 2 years ago when he helped the Celtics win a title. He had kind of a down year last year, but he's not washed by any means. He's still a productive player that can help teams when he's on the court, which is why they traded for him.
Yeah, I think the question about his contract is mostly the out years. I think this year it's fine. It's it's the final year of that deal at 37. And by that point, you will have had to pay a couple guys. So the question, in the near term, it doesn't interfere with you resigning Tumani Kamara. It doesn't interfere with an extension for Shaden Sharp.
Right.
It's very unlikely to interfere with an extension for Scoot Henderson, should that be something that they choose to do. But like, if everything goes well, there's a chance that paying Drew Holiday $37 million when he's 37 and like maybe not a starting caliber player at that time, that's like the concern about the money. But I do agree with you, basketball wise, in terms of like fit and making the roster make sense and functionality. I think it's hard to draw up a better idea of a player, whether
Right.
Drew Holiday is exactly that player or he is somewhat similar to it as he gets older, because like age is hard to predict. But I like the off-ball stuff, the defense, the being able to be effective without needing to dribble a bunch. Like, it does seem to open the door for the best version of Scoot and the best version of Shaden Sharp, and that's kind of still, to me, the math. If those dudes pop, this version of the Blazers is going to be really good. If those dudes don't pop, this version of the Blazers is going to be reset to some extent, to varying degrees based on some other stuff. I think those are the biggest surprises. Sean, what we do this time of year is have you stick around for another episode. Would you be interested in sticking around for another episode? We can talk Denny and Shaden Sharp and Tumani and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's do it. Come join us on, well, let's call it Wednesday's program, where Sean and I
Day subject to change.
Yeah, it might publish Thursday. I don't know. We're recording this on Monday evening, but sometime after you listen to this one, another one with Sean Highkin will appear, and we'll talk Denny and Tumani. Check your feeds for that one. For now, tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.